Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, and today I have the remarkable Daisy Peel. She has been a multiple world team member in dog agility. She's been involved in the sport for quite a long time. I had the honor of meeting her when my father and Daisy partnered on a seminar back, I believe that's like 2012 or 2011. And the important thing about this for me was I was auditing the seminar, and someone who was there, I was already coaching, I was teaching, but I wasn't working in dog sports at the time. And someone who was there came up to me and they said, Heather, I want to work with you. Your dad's great, love him, but you're a woman, I'm a woman. I can teach you everything you need to know about agility, but you can teach me how to think. And that started my whole road to becoming a mental coach for dog handlers. And it's been just a beautiful journey. And I kind of have Daisy to thank for that, because had she not partnered with my dad on that seminar many years ago, I wouldn't have a Patreon channel for dog handlers. I wouldn't be doing webinars for dog handlers, and I wouldn't have met some of my favorite people. So welcome, Daisy. All right, Daisy, I'm so glad to have you. How has life been for you recently?
I'm really glad to be here talking to you. Life's been busy. I've been busy teaching and competing and working on online content and podcast stuff, probably not too dissimilar from yourself. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks for
Oh,
inviting me.
awesome. I'm so excited for you. Can you give everyone just kind of a little brief overview of who you are for anybody who's watching who maybe they don't follow agility? Tell me.
Sure. My name's Daisy Peel, and I am a longtime dog agility. It's a sport, it's an obstacle course for dogs, longtime agility competitor and coach and instructor. So I train my own dogs, and I spend my life training my own dogs and then also helping other people learn how to train and handle their dogs. Used to travel all over the world. I don't do too much international travel anymore, but I still travel all over North America teaching and helping people. And then I have an online platform that I teach through as well called the Agility Challenge. I'm pretty far down the rabbit hole of dog agility. I've won multiple national championships. I've competed on 3 different continents. I have world champion titles. So yeah, it's a pretty cool life. I'm self-employed, which means I work all the time. Used to be a school teacher, but I couldn't be happier doing what I'm doing. So I'm super happy to be here with you today too.
I love that you've combined your love of teaching with your sport. So as an instructor, I bet you utilize all of those skills that you had from the classroom to an
Yeah,
extent.
and at the time when I was a high school chemistry teacher, I really loved teaching. I loved science. I loved teaching kids, but I didn't think about it 24/7. And the best teachers, I thought that the best teachers that I was observing and the most passionate ones and the ones who were going to do it for their whole lives were the ones that were thinking about it 24/7. Now I thought about it a lot, but really what I was thinking about 24/7 was dog training and dog agility. And so I thought, if I'm going to do something for the rest of my life, I want it to be the thing that I'm thinking about 24/7. And so now I do dog agility and dog training and think about dog training and teaching people and teaching dogs pretty much 24/7.
I think that's so true, what you just said, because my son just got out of teaching for part of the same reason. He says, I'm not passionate about it. And the people who are really, really good at it are the ones who love all aspects, not just the
Yeah.
one. He's like, I love the subject. I don't love all the rest of the things that I have to
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah. I really I wanted to do something that I was obsessed with.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
My speaking of obsession, so my dad's been obsessed with the mental game since 1974, 76. And he wasn't in dog sports until I started working with him, and not because I was into dog sports, but because I was into broadening the scope of what we were doing when I was working for mental management. And one of the things that we found out was dog handlers wanted to know about the mental game. They were interested in his book With Winning in Mind. And he did his first seminar at Carly Cummings' place in Sequim, Washington. And I believe you were in attendance there. And the reason I reached out to you to be on the podcast is because you were the first elite athlete or someone who was heading into really world team and wanting to be elite in your sport that grabbed on to what we were doing and was interested in it. Do you
Yeah.
remember much about that experience? It's been a minute. It's been a long time ago, but do you remember much about that?
We're not going to talk about how long ago it was.
No.
I remember at the time that I was, again, pretty obsessed and very competitive. And honestly, looking back at those days, I was really competitive, but I really didn't have the skills to be a competitor. So I really wanted to go into the ring and go toe to toe, head to head with other competitors and come out of the ring being able to call myself the best or the winner. And I really did not have any idea what that meant. I'd never been in competitive sports as a kid. I was in marching band. That was about as close as competitive sports I got. And so and I was in orchestra. So there was some competition there, but it was not the same as an athletic endeavor. And I just really, I'd go into the ring and I would feel all the feelings and have lots of mental chatter. And it was very unproductive. And it was a lot of it was really inappropriate to the situation. And so I wanted to compete, but I didn't know how to be a competitor. And I was friends with the gal that hosted that seminar. And I just thought this has got to be the key to it, because I know I'm training a lot and I know I'm working really hard, but there's definitely something missing. And to go into the competition ring and not really remember what happened when I came out of it, or not be mentally aware, seemed like a major problem to me. So I jumped at the chance when it became available.
Did you have a defining moment throughout your journey? And it doesn't have to be with agility, but ask everybody if there's a defining moment in their life that they can talk about.
I've been doing this sport for so long, and there have been so many. I've been so fortunate to be able to enjoy so much success in the ring that I'm not sure I can say that there has been a single defining moment, but there have for sure been some competitive moments where I really I could just really get on that surfboard and ride that wave. And actually I take that back, because I can think of a defining moment, and it was not a moment, it was a weekend. Mm-hmm. So there were a few years ago, I had a dog that I was getting ready to take to our Agility World Championships tryouts. His name was Frodo. And this was in 2017. We were just about as ready as we could possibly be. And 2 weeks before the tryout event, we were out on a walk, on a hike with all the dogs. Something happened. I didn't see exactly what happened, but he tore his cruciate, his ACL, the dog equivalent of an ACL, just blew it out completely, and had to have surgery. Luckily, we had surgery 48 hours later, but nobody's healing from a torn cruciate 2 weeks before a big tryout event. So that really pulled the rug out from under me. I was so ready to go to that tryout event. I had worked so hard with that dog, and then just boom, rug pulled out from underneath me. And so he had the surgery, and we spent the year doing rehab and then getting back into the ring. And I tell you what, I'm sure that any athlete in any endeavor can identify with this. When you have an injury, or your dog has an injury, or your horse has an injury, it's one thing to go through all the hard work and rehab from that injury. It is an entirely different beast to overcome the anxiety and the fear of re-injury, or that feeling that, oh my gosh, everything is made out of glass, and if one wrong step happens, everything's going to shatter, and we're going to be back to square one. So I did all the rehab from the surgery, and we got up and running, but then stepping into the ring to compete again, I was really not prepared to overcome that mental hurdle. So the injury happened and the surgery happened in April. I had to sit and watch tryouts from afar. We did all of the rehab. We got back into the ring that summer. So it was pretty quick, really, just a few months. And then I prepared again for the tryouts the following May. So May 2018 rolled around, and I went to that tryout event and I dominated that event. That event was so amazing because I did not go with one single thought of outcome at all. I went to that event. I was just so grateful to be there and so ecstatic to focus on the process and just enjoy the moment. It was such an unbelievable, um, powerful example to me of, oh, this is what it can feel like if you focus on the process and not the outcome. This is what it feels like to have your mental game put together. I have not had a tryouts that good since, but oh, that if I had to pick a defining moment, I would say that whole year leading up to that tryout event and then going to that tryout event and just absolutely dominating. I actually have, you can't see, but behind my computer on my wall, I have framed the ribbons from that event, but also the results. And not because I mean, the winning was cool. We won, 3 out of the 4 rounds at that event, but just to remind myself of the whole process that yielded that outcome and the focus, the having my mental game together. I've never had an event quite like that. That was an incredible, um, that whole year culminating in that 2018 tryouts was just incredible.
I think it's one of the things that I'll talk to clients about is the importance of celebrating the journey and making the competition not about competing or about outcome, but more about the celebration. And it sounds kind of like that's what you were able to do by focusing on the process and just maybe being grateful that y'all were able to compete again.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know you're not supposed to, as an athlete, you're not supposed to, have your identity wrapped up in being an athlete, but it's pretty tough if your whole
Mm-hmm.
life is training and competing and training and competing, or teaching. It's pretty tough to not have that be a pretty large part of your identity. And for years and years, going to those tryouts events really defined my training schedule, my competing schedule,
Mm-hmm.
my downtime, when I took vacations. And then to have all of that pulled off the table, I mean, I was pretty busy with rehab, but also there was a lot of who am I?
Mm.
If I'm not going to tryouts, who am I? So there was a lot going on that year, and being able to go to that tryout the next year and, um, to recognize that while my identity was not just as a competitor, to just be able to put that suit on again and compete and just, oh, it was amazing. That was amazing. That was an amazing event.
Is that one that you go back and recall from time to time to like build your self image to get ready for another tryout?
Yes and no. It's such a good. I just can think so fondly on that event, and I actually Frodo. I lost him unexpectedly a few months ago, so I've been
Mm.
thinking about that event even more lately. But honestly, these days, um, I don't. I've gotten to a place where I don't really think nearly so much about self image. It's a good place to be because I don't worry about failure in nearly the same way. I'm gonna go to an event and I might have a clear round, I might have a good result or not, but there are definitely other bigger, better things that are going to define success for me at an event. There's winning and then there's being
Mm-hmm.
successful, and they're the same thing, but not always.
So then that segues really quickly to my next question, which is how do you define winning?
Winning is getting first place. That's winning. That's a pretty easy one, for me. If I you could, there's different ways to win. You could win a round, a single
Mm-hmm.
round. You could win an event that's cumulative over the course of multiple rounds, where you didn't win any individual round, but cumulatively you did well enough to win a round. You could win a spot on the team. Winning is coming in first. That's winning. That's an easy one.
So then how do you define success?
Success does not always mean winning. So
Mm-hmm.
success for me these days is, did I stick to my process? That's a big one. Did I, um, and my process includes a lot of things. Did I, drink enough water? Did I
Mm-hmm.
eat right? Did I get enough sleep? Did I do all of the things outside of the ring that I know need to happen for me to be sharp inside the ring? Um, am I behaving inside and outside the ring with a strong sense of internal integrity? Am I competing to my personal standards? Am I behaving outside the ring to my personal standards? And also, if I have some process goals with my dogs, since it's a sport we do with our dogs, am I upholding my end of the bargain with the dogs? And for me, primarily that means clear communication. So, am I making choices that rely on solid training? And if I know that the training is not solid, can I make sure my dogs still know what I want to the best of my ability? And am I being clear with my communication system with my teammates, which again in this case is my dog. So when they're right, do they know they're right? When they're wrong, do they know they're wrong? That's success to me, and it really has nothing to do with winning or losing. Yeah.
I like the differentiation between the two. Let's say winning is the actual result, but success is much more than that.
Yeah, because I can win. I have plenty of examples where I win. I have a blue ribbon, and I would not have defined the run as successful. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you wobble your way around. It's not a great performance. You didn't follow your process, but you managed to meet the criteria set forth by the rules of the game, and you did better than anyone else on that day, and so you won. But that doesn't necessarily mean you were successful in meeting. It doesn't mean I was successful in maintaining internal integrity or being clear with my communication.
And maybe it doesn't even feel like a win.
Right. Yeah. And there's plenty of times where I could have a run that on paper there's a big fat E for elimination, but I feel like a winner.
Yeah.
I did not win, but I can feel very successful. Yeah.
What's something that you've learned along the way? So you've been involved in the sport for a little bit. So what is some advice that you either have been given or that you give that you think makes the biggest impact?
I think the biggest thing for me over the years, and especially in the last few years, the way the sport has evolved, the courses are much more challenging than they were when I started. And so there's a lot more failure involved. Just there's a lot more risk taking and failure and innovation in the training. So I think the thing that I have really had to wrap my own brain around and help a lot of my students and clients wrap their brains around is the idea of looking at failure differently. And it definitely has helped for me to differentiate between there's winning and losing, and then there's succeeding and failing. And then there's failure. So I can win or lose at a competitive event, but that doesn't really have any bearing on whether I'm succeeding or failing when it comes to the way that I meet failure or meet challenge. And even the word failure is pretty loaded. We tend to think that if a lot of people tend to think if you fail, you are a failure, but really being able to reframe failure as an opportunity for growth and learning and as an opportunity to rehearse appropriate responses to failure. And I've gotten a lot better at that because I've been failing a lot as the courses get harder. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to rehearse how am I going to respond to myself, to my dog, to the people around me when there is a failure. If that makes sense.
I think there's that whole reacting versus responding. And reacting is like a quick, not thinking about it. Usually it's emotionally charged and it's not usually appropriate. And then there's responding where it takes thought and you're really building on what happened and building you or making it better for everyone else. So it takes
Absolutely.
a lot of mental energy to respond versus react.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it that moment where you just have to pause for even a hundredth of a second and think about how do I respond in this moment before you actually respond. That moment that differentiates response versus reactivity, that requires a huge amount of effort. But it definitely gets easier if you, again, you have to rehearse it. It's a mechanical skill, just like swinging your tennis racket is a mechanical skill, or giving a cookie to your dog is a mechanical skill. There's some strategy and
Mm-hmm.
decision making involved. And so there's that moment where you have to choose how to respond, but also just that practice of choosing to take that moment to decide how to respond is a skill that gets better with rehearsal for sure.
I think I read on your website that you've been on, is it 15 international teams, or maybe you've been on the podium 15 times internationally?
I've been on, I can't even count at the moment, at least a dozen international teams um, with multiple dogs. And I've been on the podium internationally multiple times, and a world champion once. Yeah.
So after you've won so much, even at the international level, and just succeeded in the probably more than most people aspire to, what keeps you coming back?
There's always room for improvement. And also the challenge of, I know how to execute my training and I know how to execute my handling. Can I do it in situations that are increasingly difficult with respect to environment, arousal, and keeping my mental game together? So that really is the big challenge. Can I do that? Can I do it repeatedly? And can I get a dog to do it as well? There's also, there's something about competition, especially, that drives, in my opinion anyways, that drives innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And the best dog training is coming from people who are, in my opinion, for people who are competitors, because they want to win. And so if you want to win, you have to be better. And if you want to be better, you're going to be looking around to see what the best competitors are doing. And if they're not telling you what they're doing, figure out what they're doing, and then figure out how you can innovate and be just a little bit better. And that cycle of, can you step into the ring? Can you execute? Can you mentally be sharp? Can you do that a little bit better than the next person? And also, can you innovate your training just a little bit better? Can you be on the forefront instead of just doing what everyone else is doing? Is very, very, very motivating. Winning is cool, but it's only part of a whole big package that is incredibly addicting.
If winning was everything, I feel like at some point in time it would get boring. Like, I like the innovation side of it, where you're wanting to make the sport better, you wanting you to become better, and of course they're making it way more challenging, which probably makes
And
it fun.
it's not just that you want to be better. It's that in competition there's some pressure
Mm-hmm.
to be better. There's some, I can train my dogs for months and months on end. And COVID made it kind of was kind of a drag, because if you could be real obsessed with training and that was fine, but without the ability to have that external motivation that competitive pressure provides, at least for me, it got weird really quick, because then I was training for, I wasn't sure what. Yes, training was fun, but the pressure to be better and the motivation to be better that competition provided was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's definitely something about competitive pressure for me and for people, I think, who really enjoy competition, that it provides some external motivation and external pressure. And it's not just a selfish pressure, because I don't want to see my competitors fail. I definitely do not want to win because everybody else was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
There's no joy in it. There's no sense of accomplishment. I might feel successful because I executed my program or whatever, but it's not the same as being in a competitive field and doing just a tiny bit better. There's a lot more to be gained from that situation. And so what's really cool is when every competitor wants every other competitor to step in the ring and be their best. Because then if you come out on top,
Oh,
then that's a situation where it just, everybody gets lifted up.
you want to compete against the best at their best and
Yeah.
still be successful.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate.
Yeah.
along your journey, like I call my company Sumlin Solutions. And I'm always interested in what are the solutions that people find along the way. So was there ever a time throughout all of your years that you found a solution to a problem that was maybe unique to you?
I don't think any of my problems are unique. I mean, I've been around so long now, and I've trained helped so many people train their dogs and trained enough dogs that we feel like our problems are unique, and we feel like our dogs are unique, and we feel like our training solutions are, we're the only ones in the world that ever
Right.
possibly have ever had this problem. And we're the only ones whose dogs have ever had this problem. But that's just not the case. We are special, and our
Mm-hmm.
dogs are special because we're individuals, but that's not quite the same as having unique problems that require unique one-off, never seen before solutions. Um, so I'm not sure that I have a real pithy answer for that, but I will say that one of the things that has become clear to me over the years, and again has gotten a lot easier with practice, is that I can feel however I want to feel before I go in the ring. And I can feel however I want to feel when I come out of the ring. But, and I can feel however I want to feel when I'm in the middle of a run. But typically, if it's a good competitive endeavor, there's so much intense focus on the process that there's just no room for thinking about how I'm feeling in the
Mm-hmm.
moment or not feeling. And that has been really helpful for me over the years and also really helpful for clients. It doesn't really matter how you feel. You can
Mm-hmm.
feel happy, you can feel bummed out, you can feel tired, whatever. What you really need to do is concentrate on your process and focus on not the outcome, but the process, because the intense focus required to deal with an opponent, if you're playing a team sport, deal with your teammates, if you're in a solo sport, to just deal with yourself, and in dog sports, to deal with yourself and your canine teammate. There's just no room for anything other than in this moment, focusing intently on that process and helping people do that, and get into that space where you aren't experiencing
Mm-hmm.
feelings or emotions in quite the same way has been a pretty interesting experience for me over the years, and it's an interesting experience for a lot of people who are newer to competition, I think.
I think it's a good connection between. I mean, it may matter how you feel in some environments, but not in a competitive environment, because your feelings are a variable. So if your mental
Right,
game is tied to your feelings, then your mental game is a variable, and that's not duplicatable.
right. And I mean, I can feel super happy or maybe
Mm-hmm.
grumpy because somebody said something inappropriate to me before I go in the ring or whatever. But that's not primary. What's primary, again, is that intense focus on this process that's about to occur. And if I'm really paying attention and really focusing intently on that process, the other stuff is just going to, I don't even have to try. It's just going to take a back seat for those moments. It can be there and waiting for me at the finish line if I want it to be. I don't know why I would, but
Mm-hmm.
so that's been a kind of helpful to help differentiate, to be able to describe that process to people. You might call it being in the zone or whatever, but to be able to help people understand that feelings are not really necessary for this process. Intense focus, being physically warmed up and ready, and having the training, and then in the moment being able to intensely focus, that's way more important than how you feel in that moment.
Well, if you don't have a process, you can't duplicate it. So you've got to develop and
Right.
determine what is the process that I'm going to follow so that whatever's going on around me doesn't pull my focus, so that I
Yeah.
can have something to trust in. It sounds like over the years you have developed a process that works for you and has repeatedly worked for you. Tell everybody
Yeah.
how
And
to.
not just to focus, but
Mhm.
also to account for the inevitable, especially when you're outside of the ring, but also
Mhm.
inside the ring. Inevitably, your focus is going to be drawn away from the thing it should be on, and being able to practice as a skill, getting back onto that focus as quickly as possible without even spending a moment thinking, oh, I lost focus. Don't waste time thinking about that. Just get back on task.
what I'm hearing from you, to recap what we've kind of talked about, is like what drives you is innovation, and like being able to continue to excel and maybe innovate along with the sport as it grows. But then also process is primary. And that's something my dad says all the time. Process is primary. If process is primary, the results way more likely to go in your favor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So how can everybody follow you if they want to learn more about who you are and what you do? How do they find you?
Well, that's pretty easy. If they want to know more about who I am and what I do, they can head to www.theagilitychallenge.com. That is my online learning platform where I provide online coaching to people. I give them monthly challenges each month and demonstration and explanation videos, and then feedback on their submitted videos, and also courses on all sorts of topics, from how to raise your puppy to how to compete at high levels and everything in between.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Daisy. It's been fun catching up with you. We're going to chat more for my Patreon members. So if y'all are not a Patreon member, join my Patreon membership so that you can learn more from Daisy Peel. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.